Hello, hello. Welcome to Sit and See Live. I'm Dr. Jared Jones. My research specialty, as I've said many times, was ancient systems of meditation, the cognitive science of meditation, and a host of other fascinating subjects. This live stream is intended for people to be able to meditate daily with me live. And yeah, we ask questions, we chat together, and as we are wont to do, what else can be said? Who is here with us today? Let's see. Well, since I dropped a new video today, I was thinking that I might just start with a little bit about that. So, good day, John. Welcome, welcome. There we are. Sorry for all the clicks. Hello, hello. Welcome, everyone. So I thought what I would start with today is a little bit about the video I just put up. So I just put up a video, a new one in the PhD Responds series, which is looking at the issue of what is life, where does life come from, and where does the universe come from a Buddhist perspective. Did anybody have a chance to take a look at that before we met up today? I was thinking that I might start with just a brief chat about that while we're waiting for people to get into the live stream, and then as usual we'll do a bit of practice. Hey Nat. So let's talk a little bit about the video I put up today. Oh, good. So the video that I put up today was part of a series where I'm responding to philosophers and theologians and academics and other folks around the web who have made offhanded comments or more formal comments about Buddhism. I'm also doing a video commentary on films and so forth that are available on Buddhism Online that I think are particularly compelling and interesting and worth watching. So I'm actually working on a little commentary on Yogis of Tibet, which is a really fantastic film that's been available for free on the web now for years. In any case, in this most recent video, a theologian by the name of Avery, who is just a tremendous number of debates and so forth online and is very, very good at defending the Christian faith, was doing somewhat of a man on the street style proselytization with a young Buddhist who, in my humble view, hadn't really digested very well the positions of Buddhism. And I had a long conversation with my wife about the critical arguments in that I made in the video. And just to summarize them here, in essence, the Buddhist view is that if you try to insert a first cause into reality, a first moment of causation, then you end up with all sorts of unsolvable philosophical problems. So the problem of infinity is actually a solvable one, because every moment of reality, even in an infinite number of moments, is always a finite distance from the present moment, which means that every single moment of reality could actually reach the present moment. The objection that you quite often hear from theologians, in particular, in like quite formal settings, is that you couldn't have an infinite causal sequence because so to speak, the furthest away domino would be an infinite distance from the present moment. And if it's an infinite distance, it can't reach the present moment. But there is no domino that's an infinite distance from us. Every single domino of previous moments of reality are each a finite distance from where we are now, which means that given enough time, they would knock the dominoes down in front of them and reach the present moment. And we've had infinite time. So therefore, they must reach the present moment. You see? So this argument actually works. It's not just a faith thing. It does actually work. And then my wife was saying, well, isn't it common sense that there are first causes? Isn't it common sense that causation has to start somewhere? And I said, well, actually, is it common sense? Ask yourselves, and I would challenge you all here, in regards to the Big Bang, as I said in the video, we can't see past it. It's like a big wall, and we can't see anything behind it just because of the technological limitations we have, and maybe there's no way to see behind the microwave background radiation of the universe. There may just be no way to do it. So let me challenge you here in the chat, whoever's here. Can you provide an example besides the Big Bang, which we cannot know whether or not it has previous causes? Provide an example of some effect that doesn't come from a previous set of causes that are also themselves an effect. By way of example, a sprout comes from a seed, but the seed was caused by, let's say, fruit. So the orange tree produced a fruit that had a seed inside. That seed produced the sprout. Likewise, the orange was produced by the tree. Likewise, that tree was produced by, at some point, a seed, and so forth. So can you provide in all of reality an example of an effect, something that comes into being that doesn't depend upon previous causes and conditions? The Ice Age would be depending upon the previous climate conditions for the whole planet. So that one doesn't work. So while it seems like it's common sense that there are first causes for things, in reality, if you look at any single thing in reality, any single event, any single phenomenon, any single existent thing, you find that there's a series of causes and conditions that produce that thing. And if you go further back, there's another series of causes and conditions that produce the stuff that produce this. And if you go further back, you have 4 parents, and then 8 parents, and then 16 parents, and so forth, to produce the one guy that made this in the factory. So when you look at it like this, actually all of the evidence, 100%, not 50%, not 70%, not 94%, 100% of the evidence we have says things that exist always come from other sets of causes and conditions that themselves were caused by other causes and conditions. Not ever, never. It's never the case that one of them is the first cause. And it's a cause for which there are no other causes. And it's also never the case that it's an unchanging, permanent, eternal thing. Because unchanging, permanent, eternal things, of which there are a small number in reality, don't produce anything else. For example, the absence of an elephant in this room is not eternal, because when we stop thinking about it, it depends on our concepts to sort of label it, right? And say, well, that there's not an elephant here, right? Arguably. The absence of an elephant is not changing because it doesn't come from a set of causes and conditions that force it to come into being, like a sprout is, roughly speaking, forced to come into being because of water and heat and a seed. You see? So therefore, actually, all of the evidence of reality says Everything is always produced by another set of causes and conditions that itself is conditioned, that itself is conditioned, that itself is conditioned infinitely. That's what all the evidence says. Everything we can put our hands on says this. And everything we can put our hands on says uncaused, unchanging things never produce anything. So if we were to inject a creator deity who is uncaused and unchanging, then we end up with actually a huge problem. This being breaks all of the known rules of reality as we observe them. 100% of the rules. Not again, 100% of the way that things work the rest of the time, this being would violate them. So it doesn't actually fix the problem. And here's the bigger problem. The bigger problem is this. The bigger problem is, why is there something rather than nothing, right? This is what you hear from theologians quite often. Why is there something instead of nothing? Why is there something rather than nothing? And they say this in a context where they mean, why is there the universe instead of no universe? But the same thing, actually, the same question would apply to a deity who exists, because a deity, a creator deity, is a something. It's not nothing. So why does a creator deity exist? Well, he just does. Okay. And by the way, he breaks all the rules of reality as we understand them. Oh, okay. So why is that a better explanation than an infinite causal sequence that never breaks any of the rules of reality as we see them? In both cases, we're stuck with an explanation where we can't figure out why something exists instead of nothing. This is a problem for the ages that we're not going to be able to solve. However, one solution, an infinite causal sequence, doesn't break any of the rules of reality as we can see them, but a creator deity who's unchanging and uncaused breaks all the rules of reality as we see them. And so I think the infinite causal sequence is a better explanation. And so this is the Buddhist explanation. There are conscious beings who have, roughly speaking, a non-physical form of consciousness that passes from lifetime to lifetime. That creates the bridge between universes, when universes collapse in on themselves and then explode again. And when universes do explode into being again, in combination with the karma of sentient beings, the universes that come into being are suitable for the types of beings we will eventually become. So why is the universe fine-tuned in such a way that life comes out and begins to evolve, and then eventually consciousness can inhabit the various forms of life that have evolved? Because the universe itself came into being due to the collective and individual karmas of conscious beings working together. So in this way, we have a cosmology that doesn't break any of the rules of reality and explains the relationship of conscious beings to everything else, and doesn't need to deny things like evolution over billions of years, right? And it explains the fine-tuning. So I do think it's a fairly elegant explanation. And then, of course, in the video, I go on to explain that there is a bit of science to back this up, actually. There's a bit of science to back up the idea that consciousness and physical things can't be pulled apart. There are Nobel Prize-winning physicists like J.A. Wheeler. Hey, Sam. There are Nobel Prize-winning physicists like J.A. Wheeler, Max Planck. I'm forgetting. There are 4 or 5 other names that I should be remembering. But in any case, there's a small handful of very, very serious mathematicians and physicists who say we should take the idea seriously that consciousness needs to exist. Some type of non-physical, non-local consciousness needs to exist in order for physical things to exist. A theologian will argue that that non-physical, non-local consciousness is God. Buddhists are going to argue it's the individual minds of sentient beings. I didn't get into this in the video because it's way too much detail, but I think that there are also good reasons to think it's individual beings. For example, if you look, in terms of evidence that we have in science at the moment, if you look up Wigner's friend paradox, which I don't want to type it in the chat because the screen will go all wonky. Hold on. Maybe I can do it without too much damage here. Wigner's friend paradox. So Wigner's friend paradox was roughly speaking, with initial experiments proven to be a real thing. It was called a paradox because in physics you assume that this object is one thing and it can't exist in two completely different and contradictory states because it's one physical object with its own properties that has nothing to do with observers. However, they've done experiments related to what's called Wigner's friend paradox, where they set up an experiment in such a way that because of the setup, let's say, of two different observers observing a physical object, in this case a particle, that particle exists in two completely different ways at the same time. And it depends on which person you are observing the condition in a certain way at a certain time. So what this indicates is actually that physical things, even here and now, not just at the beginning of the universe when karma is bringing the whole universe into being, but even here and now, that the particles that make up reality are entangled with consciousness at an individual level, not just some kind of communal level, like we did it all in the past and now we're just kind of stuck with it or something. So once again, hopefully not getting too weird to kick off our Friday session, but there's some very serious physics at some of the best university. There are some very serious physicists, at some of the best universities in the world who take this idea seriously. It's not a quack fringe idea. It's a minority position in the academy, but it's a legitimate position. So there's a good reason to think that consciousness is a real thing and that it's required for physical things to exist, at least with specific properties, if not for physical things to exist at all, right? Which would be someone like Max Planck's idea. Okay, so to wind all that down before we do some seated practice, the physical universe, according to Buddhism, is entangled with consciousness. It arises out of the consciousness and karma of sentient beings and exists roughly in the form that it is for a long period of time, and then eventually it dissolves back into the consciousness of sentient beings, where it then re-arises, or the karma of beings causes a new universe to re-arise. And this process has been happening since for infinite time, infinite rebirths. And when you look at the work of Roger Penrose, for example, there are physicists who think, based on at least some math and some evidence in modern astronomy, modern astronomy, a little different, that there is some evidence supporting the idea that there may be another universe that caused this one behind the Big Bang. There are certain patterns in what's called the microwave background radiation. And those patterns indicate that another universe may have caused this current universe. So there's a little bit of evidence for this, and there's some math for this, and then of course the great yogis. In the video, well, in the coming weeks, in the videos that I put up, I'll be putting up videos where I'm collecting together different yogis, basically making these statements where they say, yeah, I did the practices. I trained for 2 decades in a cave, and I would train in meditation to a deep level, and then bang, just like the Buddha said it would, my mind opened up and I saw infinite past lives, and I saw myself going up and down between realms. And then I stretched my mind out and I saw the same thing happening to other beings. And this is exactly how it was. But I digress. Okay. Okay, friends, comrades, colleagues, shall we do a little practice, or have I completely got your mind spinning? Now there's no chance of having a good session. I'm working on a video today. Been working on a video today. Once I got the most recent one uploaded, that's related to yogis of Tibet, and there are a couple of key moments in that documentary they're just mind-boggling, where these yogis who aren't. Yeah, I know. I'm sorry, John. I'm sorry to make your mind spin, John. But these some of these yogis, they say they say things that normally they would never say in public, and almost certainly would never say on camera in public. I mean, it's just shocking that these documentary makers got them to say half of the relatively difficult things that they did say, but they also got them to admit or talk about some things that are impossible to get yogis to talk about. They just wouldn't talk. I mean, again, like my teacher, for example, would simply have never, even if you directly asked him about those things, would never talk to you about them. In 12 years, he mentioned maybe twice deep personal experiences that he had privately to me. 2 times. And yet they got all these yogis on camera to say like 2 or 3 things each that are really astonishing in terms of personal experience. And you know, yes, of course, when I was doing meditation, after about 20 years in the cave, yeah, I recalled all my past lives, and then this happened and that happened, and I'm like, it's just unbelievable to live in these times where docos. This is moments like this are when I know you're Australian. Docos, docos, doggos. Adding O to a word gives you away. I'm not going to tell you. I'm gonna finish editing this, and then I'm gonna put together. I mean, there's like 6 or 7 different documentaries that are really incredible that have come out in recent times, and I'd like to put up a watch session / commentary session on each of them. And if people are interested, you can just go watch them after I put them up. But okay, let's do some practice. It's critical to always have a sip of tea before practice. I don't know why that is, but I seemingly always do. The mind is so funny, like some corner of my mind is like, if you don't drink the tea, it's not going to go well. So this is attachment, right? It's exaggerating the benefits of the tea. Right. Let's do some intensive. Actually, let's see a show of hands. You've all been around for a while now. What kind of practice would you like to do today? So, body scanning and consciousness. Okay, let's go. So let's come to the breath first, rather than going to the nostril, since both of you have been training with me for a bit. Let's go to the belly. Excuse me. So place your mind towards the. Take both of your hands and put them where your kidneys are. So that's that gap between your hips and your ribs. And just breathe so that you can feel that area expanding with your palms. And we'll do that for just a few minutes. Just breathe into the lower abdomen. Breathe as slowly as you can without being uncomfortable. hands down and put them wherever is comfortable. And bring your attention to your left foot. Ankle. Lower part of your left calf. The upper part of your left calf. Your left knee. Left thigh. The upper thigh. Into your hip. Into the right foot. Right ankle. Lower calf. Upper calf. Knee. Lower thigh. Your upper thigh. And the hip joint. Front of the pelvis. And the back of the pelvis. Sacrum. Tailbone. Anus. Perineum. And the sexual organ. Come to rest at the tip of the organ. And now bring your awareness to the front of the waist belt. The back of the waist belt. front of the diaphragm belt. And the back of the diaphragm belt. Front of the chest. Back of the chest. Top of the left shoulder. Front, side, back, armpit. Bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky, top of the right shoulder, front, side, back, bicep, elbow, forearm, wrist, palm and back of hand, thumb, pointer, middle, ring, pinky, bottom third of the neck, middle third of the neck, upper third of the neck, back of, into the joint between the neck and the skull. of the scalp. Left side, right side, forehead, left eyebrow, right eyebrow, left eye, right eye, left cheek, right cheek, and your nose. Left ear, right ear, upper lip, chin, top lip, bottom lip, your inner cheeks, teeth, roof of your mouth, below your tongue, and the tongue. Your throat, and now the crown of your head and the top of your scalp. Short break. Move slowly. Keep 60 or 70% of your mind resting in the tactile body. Okay, bring your mind back in. Place your awareness on the crown of the head again. And stretch it down to both hands, fingertips, nail beds, palms. Stretch it down from the crown again to the feet, toe tips, nail beds, heels. Hold all 5 points. Release. Allow your mind to abide in tactile awareness in a mirror-like state. From here, begin to transition your mind even further inward and observe mental content. Make your mind like a mirror, unconcerned by the 5 external senses, focused entirely on being open, ready, and available for whatever occurs as mental content only. And if nothing occurs as mental content, just abide in that open, choiceless, intentionless, mirror-like condition. questions? Any questions? Put them in the chat. Or comments. Comments are fine. Okay. Well, I will assume that we had a good session. If anyone would like to hang out for a bit longer, we can, if you have more general thoughts or questions. Otherwise, we will call it a day. I'm not sure what BN means. Oh, maybe. Oh, between. Sorry. Yeah. Yeah. This is why we train in making the 5 external senses non-reactive. If you train to make the vision open, where it doesn't mind whatever appears, good or bad. If you train auditory open, doesn't matter what's good or bad. Tactile, doesn't matter good or bad. Taste and smell, doesn't matter good or bad. Once those are tame, then your mind will much more easily be able to go where it wants to go in the system. And since consciousness is by far a much more difficult object to place your mind on than the 5 external senses, by far, because it's formless. There's nothing to grab onto as with the other senses. The closest to it, I think, is actually hearing, which spreads out over a huge area, and it's very easy to stop, or it's very easy to miss when your mind has stopped opening one part of it, because very often there's nothing happening in one or more parts of our auditory field. So if you train to make the 5 external senses non-reactive, then through that training, you're also going to learn to really be attentive to where your attention is. Is it in the vision? Is it in sound? Is it in smell? Is it in the body? And so you'll be able to track the bandwidth of your attention. If you have 10 units of bandwidth for your attention, how many bandwidths are getting sort of distributed to the other parts of your system, and how many bandwidths are focused, how much of the bandwidth is focused on the task you set for the session. The task you set for the second part of the session was focus on mental content. So absolutely anything other than simply focusing on mental content, meaning objects that appear in your consciousness, mental consciousness, anything other than that is distraction. So if your mind is jumping from hearing sound in your chest and feeling the body and all of those things are taking bandwidth away from the main activity, which is resting the mind in formless consciousness, like a mirror, being aware, or ready at least, to cognize whatever happens to appear in consciousness. So if consciousness is just waiting there for something to appear but nothing's appearing, that's fine. Just rest like a mirror. In the same way that when you open auditory consciousness and there's no sounds, you just leave that consciousness open and ready for a sound to occur. So it's a good comment. I mean, this is actually really hard. And the comment that you're making there indicates one, you are aware of where your mind is going, which is good. And two, some portion of your bandwidth is, since you say it's sort of flicking, the way that I imagine that is that the sort of focal point of your mind is moving from place to place. Now, it's one thing for your main sort of focal point to stay on the mind, and for a little corner of your mind to be jumping around, and you know that it's jumping around, and you're doing what you can to bring it back in. It's another thing for your mind to go bang and jump to the body, and then bang and jump to sound, and then bang, go back to consciousness. It takes a long time to get that sort of little twitchy part of the mind that wants to go everywhere while you're focused on the main object. It takes a long time to fix that. Matter of fact, they say you don't fix that until, I believe it's not until stage 6 or 7 of the 9 stages of calm abiding. It takes a long time. Okay, well, since that seems to be all the comments or questions for the day, I suppose we will wrap it up. Try not to die before we meet again. I hope to see you again. That's what I mean when I say that, by the way. If you were wondering. You never know. Okay, everyone. Have a wonderful Friday. Thank you for attending. It's a little hard for me to believe almost that we've been meeting for 12 days in a row, and quite a few of you have showed up either all the time or at least somewhat regularly. It's impressive. I think this is the wonder of the digital age, isn't it? Because if you had to go to some place, if you had to go, if you had to, even if I was 15 minutes down the road, if you had to walk down to some place that I was to do this practice with me, you probably wouldn't do it every day, But because you can sort of hang out in your place and you have your spot you're going to sit and you log in, do your thing, and then get back to life, it seems like seems like this is beneficial. So that's good. Is Cleric here? I haven't seen him in the chat. Or I haven't seen him talking. For those of you who are here and who are regulars or interested at least, I'm thinking about maybe moving the time a little bit later, potentially, so that we can accommodate people that are in the Australian time zone and I think also in India, if I'm not mistaken. So I think if I can get a little bit later, maybe starting at 8:30 London time, that becomes a little bit more manageable for people in those time zones. I think ultimately I'm going to have to stream at like 10:30 or something my time for it to work for everyone, unfortunately, but we shall see. And if I do that, then it conflicts with one of the times that I meet with one of my teachers, so that's the pickle that I'm in. Okay. Once again, thank you for coming. Hope to see you soon. Don't do anything I wouldn't do. Have a good weekend. I'll see you tomorrow if you're attending. Okay, cheers.